Good morning, afternoon, or evening to each and every one of you that tunes in to Beautiful Elise. Thank you so much for just coming on my channel and just listening in regards of my life and the purpose that I am here. Once again, I'm here to help those that um, first to give my testimony, share my life, and hopefully uplift someone to give them some empowerment to let them know that it is not over. And also do a little getaways and travels, those different things for women over 50, men over 50. Again, that is the purpose of my YouTube channel, and to, like I said, uplift. I was contemplating on what should I share, and I was pondering in my heart, okay, what should I share today? Today I talk about when I left off on the last video talking about working in the prison system. And I shared about the women, the co-workers. I want to go into now, I'm going to talk about the inmates. That is what people are called when they are inside the prison system. They are called inmates. Unfortunately, the in means that they're inside and they're going to be mating with other like-minded people. So we had to either say inmates or offenders. And we called them that to identify who they are and what they done. And pretty much it was never their name, it was the title. The title pretty much puts you in the place of saying this is who you are. And I recall working with the males, and I'll say that was many years ago. I worked with the male prisoners or inmates, offenders. And at one point in time, it felt uncomfortable saying that because they had names. They had names, but we would, it was the culture then, to say inmate and then you say their number. And I felt very uncomfortable because I looked at it as I've never been taught to identify a person by their title of what they have done. And after a while, I kind of defied that, and I'm going to say that in a way, not to say that I was going against my job entitlement, but it was more so because of dignity of a person. And and I learned how to do that when I would say, hey, I'm inmate such and such, and I'll say, what's your name? And I recall saying that to a gentleman, and he said, my name is Mr. Brown, Michael Brown. And I said, Mr. Brown, and then I'll start the conversation with him. And this is at the time I was counseling. And he was like, well, they know me by my number. But I said, but you are Michael Brown. You are who you are is Michael Brown. Is the name that was given or the number that you have given is because of what you did. It doesn't dictate who you really are. You are someone's son. You are a man. And because of what you've done doesn't define your purpose and your reasoning to be who you are created to be. He looked at me like, I never heard anybody say that before. And I looked at it as a God moment. I don't know what this gentleman was going through, but I know at that specific time, God allowed me to identify a man, not a prisoner, not an inmate, not a offender. He was a man. And ever since then, I said, God, how do we get the culture to change? And, my thoughts was, people tend to make cultures because it makes them comfortable. And sometimes it makes them powerful. It makes them look upon someone as being, I'm not you. and you're not me. And it's very hard to change cultures. I say all of that to say, sometimes you have to step outside of when you find yourself in places where people identify people, and I'm saying people, not things, but people identifying people as you're not like me, and I look at you as being beneath or not worthy to be called your name. Always check when you find yourself in situations someone is calling you outside of your name. And I'm going somewhere with this. Just like us females and males, and I'll say both, where it used to be this thing where being called a BI, I'm not good with the cursing thing. Sometimes when I get upset, I might, but if it comes out. But when you get used to calling someone, hey B, hey MF, hey, whatever your thought pattern is of that person, you tend to tag on to them the belief of this is who I am. And then you got some people that literally pulls that narrative into their life. I'm sorry, my puppy is starting up again because he knows I'm trying to do my thing, but kind of ignore him. But when you have people that will pull that into their narrative of their life, because I would hear some of the guys that were inside the prison would say, it's hard for me to make it out there, meaning being released, starting a new life because of what I've done. And I'm nothing but an inmate, and I'm nothing but a number. And likewise, same thing with us females sometimes. If you have been in a culture that people would say, oh, she's fast, or she's a freak, or she ain't sugar honey iced tea, and he ain't sugar honey iced tea. I always try to mop up those words, but if you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying. Or either, you was told you're dumb and you're stupid and you're never going to make it. You begin to believe that stuff, and you start to practice and believing that something is wrong with me as a person. Something about me would not focus in that God had created himself in me, and I'm not what they say that I am. And when you find yourself in that type of culture, you must run and not walk. Run from those words of people that want to keep you boxed in, and run from situations that tend to diminish who you are as a person. Run. Don't walk. Run. And the first thing you need to start doing is running through your own mind and changing the narrative. I recall when I was younger, I was told, and it was said to me, oh, you think you're this. You're too prissy. Or you are too fast. You're too grown. These labels people put on you begin to make you wonder that and take you through a process that you slowly forget who you are. If you've never been spoken into and saying you're positive, you're beautiful, God has created you fearfully and wonderfully. You are so awesome, more than anything in the world. If you have not had that deposited into your life, likewise the inmates and the offenders. We got into a culture that we began to call them Mr. Brown, Miss Baines, Mr. It was never inmate, offender, because we had to change that narrative and help them to develop that God has created you to be wonderfully and fearfully made. And what you think of yourself dictates how you produce your future. That is another tidbit I'm sharing with you. And this is run, don't walk. Think the way God thinks about you. And watch your culture. Listen to what they're saying. And if it doesn't describe you, run, don't walk. Have a good day, y'all. See you next time.